Hey, what's going on, guys and gals? Hey, this particular video, we're talking with Tim Fisher, a member up in our Facebook Rack user group. And we're going to talk about some routing for doing talkback mics in between two consoles, AES routing, things of this nature. And to begin with, Tim's going to go over the equipment that he's going to use, and then we'll jump right into the webinar. Okay? Sit back, relax. It's going to be a while. All right?
So here's my setup currently. This is a Midas DL32. There's the patch bay. These are the splitters. It's 32 rack with an iPad. Courtesy power. X-Touch. All-in-one PC. Running Linux currently, which is also a touchscreen. This is my Galaxy Audio little Q speaker that I use. This red light lights up when there's signal present. I'm running Wave Super Rack Performer. I also use Reaper for multi-track. I'm using the Clark Technic DN9630 for AES50. Right now it's just not connected, but that allows 48 channels bidirectional for recording. X32 core, which is more or less my backup front of house rig, so that if I can't fit this in any given space for running front of house, then I can just bring this. They both have this CyberPower battery backup. It's, I believe, 1500 watts. On the back, I'm using the Sound Tool SuperCat XM cable. This is just the 10-meter chunk, but I do have a 100-meter spool as well. That's going between the two. Little patch bay back here for AES50. Here's the CyberPower for front of house. Again, battery backup. Right now, seeing 119 volts in. Sending out 119. Utilizing 32% of its capacity. Battery's charged. Could run 23 minutes if I lost power in this situation. Here's the back of the DL32 split snake that I built. And in here are all the Phoenix connectors, all the wiring. Down here used to be a drawer, but the drawer fell out and I kind of like it better without it. Just keeps some separation, but you have access to the whole thing. And then in here, I've got 32 XLR tails that can go wherever you need them to go, and they're isolated. Whirlwind, everything's black gold XLR connections. There's a closer look at Phoenix terminals. You got inputs and splits. There's a bit of a closer look in here. Using my talkback line, my brake music on aux input 5 and 6 that comes from this puck.
Power on.
I call it a puck. It's
Receiver.
Bluetooth receiver.
Analog output is connected. Reconnecting to last paired device. Connected. Ready for use.
My router, I have this one shut off currently. because I'm tied into my home internet through Netgear Orbi Mesh. That's an RBS50. So I got internet to the garage for the video shoot. Yeah. It's the back of the Q speaker. The great thing about this is it's got a combo jack and it's got a 20 dB pad if you need it, so that if you went in XLR but you wanted to stay line level, you would just engage the pad. Right now I'm using a balanced 1/4-inch cable. Here's the back of X32 core setup. Again, unplugged my Airport Express because I've got the switch wired in to my Orbi mesh satellite receiver currently. So I didn't need extra routers. There's another switch because I have 4 Universe outs for Onyx to run lighting if I use a Windows laptop for that. Those are all in the switch, so sometimes it's nice to just bring out this little rack.
Well, John, I see you entered the chat room, brother. You can unmute your mic and say hello if you want to.
Shorty.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up?
I just, you got to give Tim Fisher credit because, saw he was going to teach everybody how to fix shit like he does for me all the time. So I figured I had to chime in.
There you go.
I always get bit by the routing bug. I'll just be super quick with this, but yeah, it's one of the biggest things that gets me on these, right? Is like between the different consoles, it can be different too, because I don't work with the core. And just, what was it, Tim? Yesterday, the other day, I had a buddy calling me, shit was hitting the fan. I was trying to walk him through it over the phone. I'm like, what do you mean virtual out? Well, so between, M32R or full size X32 or M32 core, and it can be different. So anyway, I get bit by the routing thing. Still shouldn't. Just bring your computer with you, I guess, But,
there you go. All right. I think I'm in a spot 20 minutes into this where I can share screens now. So right here, I've got an X32 rack and an X32 core. And this laptop is connected to the core, which I'm going to call front of house. This is connected to my X32 rack, which I also have a DL32 down here. You can't really see it, but it's there. If I were to disconnect, look at the X32 rack, you'd see the clock sync right here. So you've got
the DL32.
Yep. The rack is the master preamp control. I zeroed out everything. And I usually like to start that way. Mixer, initialize, yes. Just wipe out all of it. That way, you know that you're starting from a good spot. Right now, this computer is looking at my X32 rack, which is here. You can see my webcam.
Yeah.
And then this screen up here is running Linux, which is also talking to the same rack right now. But I just wanted to show that the X32 rack is talking to the DL32 over A. And it's talking to my X32 core on B currently. So the core is clock synced to AES50B so that the rack is the master clock and it's the master preamps.
And the DL32 is just into the A port to A port.
Correct. It's just default routing currently, which we have yet to set up.
Okay.
But it's just a complete default wipeout of everything. So we start from that point where everybody can start from. I figured we could start with just get signal into the rack, get it from the rack to the core, get it from the core back to the rack and out the outputs of the DL32. Because I feel like that's kind of
the main request is, how do I go with 2 mixers and a stage box and get outputs from both mixers to the same stage box?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely correct.
Have any of you seen these handy things? Select Audio.
Is it the sound bullet?
Yep.
Gotta love sound bullet.
Yeah, I got one. I love them.
Can you show my camera there? So I got one of these. It's really handy. It's a cable tester. You can send pink noise. I'm still learning how to use it. But
I actually did a video on that, brother. They sent me one. These guys actually sent me one. It's the first company that ever sent me anything. And I said, hey man, look, this is what I use. Somebody turned me on to it. If you send me one, I'll review it, put it up. Boom, man. 2 weeks later, it's in the mail.
That's awesome.
It was.
You also did a video with Dave Barker, if I remember correctly.
I did. That's what I'm saying. We did a video with it. And I do. I still use it all the time.
There it is. So I'm on the screen that I'm sharing right now is the X32 rack. And I've got this sound bullet plugged into input 1 of the DL32 right now. And there it is, right? But default routing, for anybody who's curious, is set up this way on an X32 rack. Yeah. So I just moved my inputs over to AES50A 1 through 32. That's the only change I've made so far. And
yeah, your local is always for the mixer that you're working on, guys. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're using the console, you want those outputs and inputs on the back, it's under local. Rack, under local. Core, producer, it doesn't matter.
Yep. So if I solo that, I'm just trying to hit -20. That's the target I like. -18 is just above it, but -20 gives you a line and gives you a couple dB of headroom. -18 dBFS is the equivalent of analog unity in this mixer platform. So every input signal I ever have, I try to shoot for -18, with the exception of kick and snare, because these are peak meters and those are transients. So generally go up to about -12 on the peak of a kick and snare. So I just wanted to start at that point, right? Signal in, DL32, X32 rack, see it, it's at a good level, I can hear it, it's soloed. In order to get all of this audio over to a secondary X32 or M32 via AES50, we have to do 2 things. 1, plug in the AES50 cable, which it is right now. It's B2B on a Sound Tools SuperCat XM shielded Ethercon cable that I have. And then I have to clock sync my front of house mixer, which in this case is an X32 core, via the B port, which I'll explain why I go B to B in a little bit. A lot of people will go B to A. I have a method for that. But I just have to clock sync it down the same cable back to the X32 rack. And in this case, it's B. I'm going to disconnect from the X32 rack, as you can hopefully see here.
We can.
Going to connect to the core. This one is going to stay on the X32 rack, just for reference. You can see it. And there's 2 steps that I'm pretty much going to have to do here. 1, my inputs are going to have to come from B, because I'm sending signal, and I will be sending signal from the B port of the rack into the core. So I have to receive on B, but I did forget a quick step, and that's to send out these channels over the B port. So I'm going to jump back to the rack. This is where people get hung up on this part.
There we go. AES50 routing.
Right. Your inputs on the rack are the DL32 is coming in on A, all 32 channels. It gets into the mixer, everything's fine. You can see it's still there. If I go to AES50, I now have the opportunity to route different types of signals across the A port or the B port. Here's all the sources, the top line. Here's all the destinations, the bottom line, outputs, right? So instead of routing what would normally be these outputs down the B port to my other mixer, which is where most people get caught up on, I need to go route the A DL32 signals right from the preamp over to the other mixer. We're still looking at we'll call it monitor console right now. I always suggest stage box A to A to the monitor console B to B, which again, I have a method for that, to your front of house console. And that way your monitor console does all the master clocking, master preamp control, and overall general routing for everything.
But how do I get the outputs from the front of house console up to the stage?
Here's the next step. So I'm going to leave it like this, where Alternet is sending out 33 through 48. This is from my X32 rack, the monitor world. That's going to go out the B port. So this would be the default essentially here for Alternet, but we're saying 1 through 32 going out to the X32 core. Your question is down the line for some routing, but that's a great question, and that's the main reason why I wanted to do this call. I'm going to disconnect from my X32 rack, which is my monitor world. And what we're doing is we're sending all the signal from the DL32, 1 through 32. We're adding an Alternet 33 through 48. We're sending it out the B port to the front of house X32 core. That's where we're landed so far. I'm going to sync up to my core.
Now notice you're going mixer to PC.
Yes, every time.
Okay.
I do not want to force a scene or routing change of any kind by accident going the other direction. I always want to pull from the hardware to the laptop.
Okay.
Even if my intent is going to be to change the scene, I'll do that after the fact. That way I don't accidentally screw it up. So my inputs on my X32 core, I now have to look at that. Right now, they're coming in on the B port because we've got them connected B to B. I do have an SD8 connected to this core on the A port. That's just built into the rack, so we can ignore that for now. And also, the outputs are, there's a switch on that SD8. I have it set to 9 through 16, so it can just be basically the default main left-right outs. Excuse me. But that's kind of irrelevant at this point. So we get our inputs in. I can see the signal coming in on 1. And now we have to ask, how do we get the outputs back down to the X32 rack from the front of the house? And we have to look at a couple options. By default, you already have outputs 1 through 16 sending back down the B port as AES50 return 1 through 16. It technically goes all the way down 48 because AES50 is bidirectionally 48 channels each way.
Right.
Is everybody aware of that?
Okay.
So you send 48, you receive 48. Can actually do some MIDI stuff as well. That's somewhat important for a different rig build, but just think of it as 48 channels bidirectional. Even though you can only use 32 preamps and then the auxiliary layer. The other 16 to me are like a virtual return between consoles. So because I'm sending my outs of my front of house mixer by default to out 1 through 16, I can use it that way and send it back to my other mixer with default routing if I so chose to go this route. I personally like to kick it up to the highest channels. And so I triple this up and I say 33 through 48 are my virtual returns, and it's looking at these outs from front of house. And I'm just going to go shut all these off so it's not default right now. So again, this is my front of house console. I'm picking the routing that I want to get it back to the rack. I'm really only concerned about the higher channel counts. I'm thinking about the virtual returns, the way I call it, would be 33 through 6 or through 48 rather.
What are
And
those? Are those specific channels? Are those mixed buses? Are they what?
right now, these outs by default, like this is the default routing. If you initialize the console, that's what it would look like.
Right.
This out 1 through 16 is referring to this tab. So these are the designations of outputs that you want to land on your XLR outs, which is what John Russell or Shorty was talking about, where on the X32 rack, these are local 1 through 8 or hard physical connections 1 through 8, and then the virtual returns were 9 through 16. In the case of my core, they're all virtual because it doesn't have any physical connections in the back of the rack.
Right. Yeah.
Back of the core. So even though I have an SD8 plugged in, they all say virtual. That was something I wanted Shorty to notice. But let's say by default on every X32 mixer, we set up our master left right as 15, 16. Everybody with me on that?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to do monitor. I want to do master left right.
I was just going to call you on that.
Yep. In this, I like to do monitor for solo in place things sometimes, but not for this purpose. So 15, 16 left right. Where that is going to show up currently based on our routing is it'll show up here 15, 16, here 15, 16, here 15, 16. But I can ignore all of this because on the monitor rack, I'm only going to pull it from AES50B 45 through
41 through 48 there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's say you were doing subs and you wanted to say mono center, 13 sub, 14 sub, 15 left, 16 right. I like to set it up as the 4 channels of that. You could do it this way. You could use your matrix for subs if you wanted to and build it out that way. This is simple for everybody to see though. If you wanted to send your talkback down the line, this is where you do it. I don't want to accidentally press that. I like to go 12 and just grab talkback post fader. And so now you can start developing returns from this mixer back down to your monitor mixer. Is everybody following me on that?
Yeah.
So you're assigning your outs the way you would always assign them. It's just you happen to be sending them down here. Now, if this was default, it would go down this one, not down here because it's not assigned to outs 13 through 16. I like to just do it this way. And there's only one real reason why, and that is so I can access my output delay from front of house, sending it back down the cat cable. If I were to do it through Ultranet, and I said, pick the tap. This is a Drew Brashler trick that I saw in one of his videos. I didn't realize you can just pick it first. Pick the tap, post fader, and then everything I select is going to be post fader. If you did it this way, and let's just say we shut all these off, it can be done. That will allow you to do whatever you want here and still get your drive lines down. However, let's just make it look the same here. And my core is actually the internal talkback. More on that in a minute.
You got an internal microphone on the core?
No, it only sees it from the internal for talkback. It's really strange. I got into a weird situation with that once trying to figure that out. But I want to get back to this thought. So if you, let's say you wanted to have no outputs up here on your main mixer and you wanted to do it all from alternate, you can. However, you don't get access to your output delay that way because it's not looking at these
The
outs.
P16,
It's looking
yeah.
at this.
Yeah.
So because I want output delay for speaker time alignment for mains versus subs versus outfills versus whatever, and I want my own control of it, even if the system's tuned, you might want to kick your front fills back another couple milliseconds just for the way you like to mix. The only way to access this output delay is to set it up in this fashion, where in my case, I like to send it out through the higher channel counts of AES50. So we'll talk 44 through 48. I like to set it up here so I get the output delay with that. So right here, talkback, which would be AES50 44. So B44, sending it back down to the mixer. This is B45, 46, 47, 48.
Yeah.
The way I'm currently routing it. And I'm looking at these two specifically. So now I can kick on output delay here as needed and drive the PA however I want while still only having that one shielded EtherCon connection between mixers. I don't have to run XLR cable back. So we got our ins coming from the B. We're going to send the outs down pretty much everything over the B path. We have access to assigning outputs however we want, which most X32s or M32s at front of house would be assigning their left right as 15, 16 because that's a default on the board itself. If you want to add some subs, it's 13, 14. I like to run talkback on 12. Once that's done, we have to get back into the monitor mixer.
And when you're talking about the talkback, you're talking about the actual talkback mic system built into the mixer.
Correct. And I have two different talkback mics set up here that we can look at that, one per mixer. I'm going to go back to my monitor mixer, which is the rack. And this is where we can have some fun. Now we're talking about how do we get the outs to the DL32's 1 through 16 outputs. Keep in mind, we are using the B cable between mixers, and we're sending our front of house returns AES50B channel 44 for talkback, 45, 6, 47, 48 as mains, sub, left, right. So talkback, sub, left, right. But the outputs are connected to the X32 rack on the A cable, and I got to get signal from the B to the A, and I got to land it on 1 through 16. This is where the community definitely needs the clarification of how to do this. And it's taken me years to get to a point where I understand it. But thankfully, with firmware 4.0 and higher, we have a lot of flexibility here due to user routing if we need it. I also wanted to mention that so far, we're not touching user ins or outs yet.
Yeah, I noticed that.
We can, but I'm trying to avoid having to do that currently. There's a reason why we might use it, though. And that's, it depends on how many monitor mixes you need to send and how many outputs you need to occupy for your monitors from the monitor console. In Shorty's case, he wants 12 monitors and then 4 mains, right?
I do left, right, sub, fill, and then correct 12 mixes, right? So we're exhausting it. And what he's shown so far is we're locked in that bank of 8 thing, but then what he's going to get to is showing patch in 33 to 48 into 1 to 16, and then interrupting that second bank of 8 with the user patching to not be married to that bank of 8, right, Tim? If I'm not
Yeah, well, I
Exactly.
see you just as bad as he is, John, just so you know.
John is way more techie than
Dude,
I am.
I had to.
You
I've had
guys are really, really too good.
I've had to lean on Tim on this multiple times. And like, I was doing this Meatloaf tribute show, and he like wanted. I sent him a file, and then he actually came out to Gypsy. It was the second to the last show that James Walsh played Gypsy, and he came out and helped me out. And I was kind of having a tough day, and he's like, "You mind if I just update the firmware on your consoles to 4 and you redo all your routing and shit?" I'm like, "Go for it, dude." So yeah, I'll let you get
right
back.
before
Sorry.
sound check with a music legend from Minnesota. Here comes Tim Fisher going, let's update firmware on both consoles and change everything while the client is sitting there watching. It was great.
It was fun.
But I had confidence, and I only did one mixer at a time just in case something happened where I could get by on the other one. So I had a plan, but sometimes I'm willing to push the envelope and try things. So right here, what we're trying to do is get our outputs from front of house, which we already have routed, into the rack, which is already sending to it, out of the rack to the DL32. So we have to take signal from B 44 through 48 and get it to outputs 12 through 16 on the A port. One thing you could do is say, I want my B48 signal, the source, to be coming in, going out a path. And right now I could just say, I just want a block of 8 for that. Boom. And now I would be able to say outputs 9 through 16 of my DL32 are coming from my front of house. I don't have to use the user outs for this. But if you're like Shorty and you want specific things like 12 outs from monitor world, 4 outs from front of house, which is pretty common, that's where you need to jump into the user routing. Does that make sense?
It does.
You got to split up the 8.
Yeah, you got to be able to. You need them exactly where you need them, and that's it.
Right. So in this case, I'm taking my B 41 through 48. I'm sending out A 9 through 16.
But Tim, I gotta say before we go, I love the fact that like your first inclination to doing the double routing is to not want to touch user routing, because I always tell people that if you don't have to do like what John's wanting with splitting it up, keeping away from user routing just saves your bacon later on by making it less complex.
Yep, exactly.
I was wanting to mention something,
Sure,
Tim, that bring that screen up. For you guys that don't know this, you probably see the name. When you click a console, you can see on the bottom right above where it says the current firmware version. Normally, that's going to be like some kind of other default thing or a blank name. You can go in and label all your consoles if you're like Tim, having to work with multiple consoles on the same network. Go in and label your consoles.
Yep, I did this. Otherwise, it'd be the MAC address, and it just drives me crazy to think about that. I just want to see what's what. I could name this FOH. Like if I did that right now, FOH, rename mixer, believe it's locked in.
Yeah, it shows up above too.
Yep. If I synchronize, I'm good. I can rename the other one just for the sake of it. You have to disconnect from one, reconnect from the other. Once you're connected to that mixer, you can label it however you want. So I could keep the same naming convention: Rock for Hope, RFH, X32, MON. Rename, and hopefully that's less confusing. So if I go back to front of house, which is my core, I wanted to point out that I still have signal coming in, but in order to get it out, I now have to do a couple things. I have to make sure, one, that I'm assigned to left right, which I am right here. If anybody's not familiar, go to the main tab, main stereo, left right. I need to make sure my routing is post fader, which it is, right, for outputs. I got to bring up my main fader to preferably Unity, and then start bringing up the master the main channel fader, and get signal out the bus. So if I go to mixed buses, left, right, it's right there. So we know that it's going out the mains. If I pull this down, I should see it drop.
Yep.
I'm not sending it anywhere else. And so I'm going to disconnect and hook up that cable to output 15 on my DL32, which is my left channel, and I should start getting signal. If I
Hey
did it
guys,
right.
listen, I'm gonna walk in and grab another cup of coffee real fast. Y'all want to take a 5-minute break? Do you want to keep it going? What do you want to do?
Oh, if you want to take a break, go ahead.
Well, I'm just kind of taking a poll. I'm going to do it regardless.
Yeah,
I just want to give y'all the option.
I'm good for whatever you'd like.
All right, man. I'm gonna silence the video. I'm gonna leave the recording going.
Yeah,
I'll just edit this out.
Yeah,
Yep.
we don't want you to be left out of this.
I gotta say, I love this Q wedge. Can you guys see this camera here?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can still see that there, but
Yeah.
it tells you got signal before you even turn the knob up.
Yeah.
And they're loud. I mean, surprisingly for the size, I'm surprised what they can do.
Yeah, I got it on 20 dB pad because I'm running line level into it to the XLR, so I don't want to hit the preamp inside of it for a mic. And I've got this on 1.5 out of, I assume, 10, maybe 11. 15. 1.5 out of 15.
Whoa.
And you said earlier you just have it coming out of an aux jack, not the monitor section?
I just moved that patch. Wondering if I can...
To the master out. To the main out.
So if you can see that, I've got a split snake that I built with my DL32. So there's a DL32. There's the patch of the DL32. I'm coming out 15. Going straight into that Q wedge because I changed the patch so that I could hear it post fader through the DL32 just to prove the routing is good.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I always try to use the monitor output section if you can, because most people don't realize this one. This is a trick I learned on a YouTube video a long time ago, and my God, it makes a difference. You were talking about time alignment earlier with outs 1 through 16.
Yes.
There's a time delay on the monitor bus as well. And someone did a video talking about how you also need to time align your monitor bus to your mains as well. Ever since I tried that, oh my God, my monitor, my in-ears or little speakers I have at front of house are so much better.
Yeah. If you're talking about like your headphone mix at front of house or your monitor, like the actual jacks that say monitor, which are your solo bus.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, kick your headphones back to your PA, otherwise it's mud. If you're trying to find something in a mix, like what is that in the guitar or some shit, you know? And I'm like sitting there and I've got like the EX29s, they're pretty decent with cancellation, but still, it's like if you're out of time, it makes it a nightmare.
Yeah, there's the delay on the far left of that pop-up he has.
Yep. So right here, what we're talking about is your headphone mix, be it the headphone amp on the front of your X32 rack or similar, or the 1/4-inch jacks in the back that say monitor. It's basically your solo bus. You can kick on your delay, time align it to whatever you need. I recently figured out that can also be saved in a snippet.
Oh, that's nice to know.
So I've got PA snippets that just overwrite these settings on top of whatever mix I'm in to say, okay, here's my band mix. What PA am I on today? And I just recall the PA snippet.
Oh, that's a smart idea.
So what delay do you want to use for that monitor jack? The distance from the main speakers?
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you.
For an oversimplification of it, Easiest way to do it is if you had like a laser distro or a laser distance measurer.
Yep.
Bosch makes them. Home Depot has them. You can basically tell it to measure from the back of that unit, and I usually literally hold it up to my ear and then point the laser at speaker 1 or left, take the measurement, point the laser at the second speaker, take the measurement, and then you can, for very simplistic math, which isn't necessarily great or perfect from trigonometry standpoint, you can just take the big one minus the little one, park your delay at that, and you're right in the ballpark. So let's say you're 54 feet from your left speaker and you're 51 feet or 52 feet from your right speaker. You could just say, well, put it at 53 feet for delay to get close. If that makes sense. So you can just literally type it in 53 feet in the feet section, or meters or milliseconds, however you like to do it. And you'll get in the ballpark, and then you can just start going back and forth. What I like to do is do the rest by ear. I use in-ear monitors, custom molds from All Clear, the RSM model. I'll take my left ear out, have the headphone mix all the way down. I'm listening to my mixes however I want it set up at that show. I'll start turning up my headphone amp just to the point where it feels balanced with one ear out and one ear in. And then I'm taking this delay, and even though I did the laser measurement and got close, I'll just go back and forth until I can hear it pop into focus.
Sweet.
You can also go too far and hear the cancellation. So you'll know if you're in the cancellation point, you're in the null. You've gone too far. If you're getting louder, you're in focus. If you go past the loud point, you're going back into cancellation. So you just kind of rock it back and forth until you find the middle point. But for very quick math, just take the long distance minus the shorter distance, park it in the middle, and you're in the ballpark.
Take me out to the ball game.
Yeah, we were just talking about headphone delay at front of house. Your solo bus. All right, so are you back with us?
I am.
Dana? Awesome. You haven't missed anything besides the headphone delay stuff. I am talking to my front of house core right now. Got signal coming in, got signal going out. And right now, this Q speaker is plugged into output 15 of my DL32, as everybody saw earlier. So it's XLR straight into the back of it. Try to show that a little bit better. Holding a mic stand with the camera on it, but can we all see this?
Yeah.
Just XLR straight in from output 15. Got signal. See if maybe that's a better view. Okay. So now if I, let's back over a little. If I were to pull my master fader at front of house, there it goes. It's gone. And all that because we said our outputs go down. We just assign them as normal through the outs 1 through 16 tab. And we want access to output delay, so we just do it this way. We say outs 1 through 16 all the way down, so they can also land on 33 through 48. We're only currently assigning what we would call 44, 45, 46, 47, and 48 to go that down the B path back to the monitor mixer. So I have full control
Yeah.
of my front of house mix back down through that method. There's still another piece of this, which is monitor mix buses getting out outputs 1 through 8, or if we want to take it further, 1 through 12. The 1 through 8 method is already done because we just kept 1 through 8 going out A1 through 8, which means we can assign these as mix buses 1 through 8 as they already were. Shut these off. And so here's your monitor mixes. You're pulling 9 through 16 from the B port and sending it out the A port as 9 through 16, which is right here. And so again, we're in the monitor mixer now. And all we have to do is say mix bus 1, output 1, all the way through 8. We're set up that way already by that block of 8.
So the
now,
outputs, the 8 outputs are going to, you label them there, and that's what you'll actually be running from that location.
Correct. So now I want to set up a monitor mix. We're going to look at mix bus 1. Again, this is all just default. I want to, I'm seeing signal. I want to check my meter. I'll go to in, out. I'm getting an output 1. So input 1 is coming in. It's going out output 1. I want to double check that I'm not on post fader or something. Good there. Sends, we are set up as pre-EQ currently, which I like to go pre-fader. Because especially if I'm on 2 different consoles, I want to be able to utilize my EQ.
Yeah, for those of y'all watching this, when you put it on pre-EQ, it means that the signal coming in will not go through the EQing process from the mixer that's sending it out.
Exactly. So now that I'm on post EQ, essentially, pre-fader, I would be able to turn that EQ on, carve it out, and I mean, hypothetically, we would see a drop or loss of output level, right? See how it raises up, pull it back down, it's post. You can confirm that way.
Yeah. Plus number 1, the meter dropping in and out.
Yep, right here. That's how I like to check the taps, just to make sure it's actually doing what I think it should be. My shelf, 0. So we know it's going out from channel 1 to mix bus 1. We set up mix bus 1 to be at unity. I'm going to resize this window so it can be at height. And we're right here is mix bus 1. While I'm at it, I'm just going to put them all to 0 dB. And then all I have to do is move that XLR cable over to output 1 of my DL32. And I should have it, which we see that light turn on right away. There it is. So just to reconfirm, I'm on my monitor console. I mute. It's post mute, post EQ. This is my in-ear monitor mix 1. I can turn on the EQ. I can high cut it. Mix however I want. We can do a drastic change here, right? Just for proof of something. So this is your monitor mix, hypothetically. If I go back to output 15, I'll get my front of house mix.
So why don't you take this the last step and let's get 41 through 44 set up for monitor out as well, so that we have the 12 outputs that we're
perfect. That's the step that John Russell needed, and so that's where we got to start using the user outs. We got to split that bank of 8.
But can we leave the initial bank of 8 so that the 4 are there already, or do we have to Cancel that.
You can, but what I don't like to do personally is I don't want to split screens and go back and forth to say, okay, these 8 are a block of 8. These 8 are split. I like to just see it all at once, personally.
All right.
So I don't want to look at this going, that's the block, and then we move this one over to user, and that's split. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I like to do this. And in that case, you can actually just go right down the line and go, okay, now I'm just using user out on a path.
Right. Okay.
Assuming we're in 4.0 or higher. This is on 4.13, which is the newest.
Yeah.
Here, we have to say in the user out, specify what you want to do.
Okay.
In this case, I want out 1 through 8 to go out. We'll call it AES50A 1 through 8 because that's what we specified here out the A path.
Yep.
So here I can just start doing the grid.
And it shows you right there what mix buses are coming to those outputs.
Yep.
Right.
So if we want to go 1 through 12, there it is. If we want to say the last 4 are 45 through 48.
Yeah.
Here it is. And as you saw, as soon as I don't know if you can see my cue speaker though, as soon as I click on 45, boom, red light.
Yeah.
Now, if I want to get my talk back, which is one of the pieces of this poll,
Right.
from front of house back to monitors, I'm not going to use 12 mix buses. I'm going to use 11.
Right. Right. But he was talking about needing 12 and no talkback.
Well, yeah, in my most extreme cases, I mean, I actually run into shit where they might want 14, but then we're bringing out QLs and Rios. With the X32 stuff, yeah, I mean, at most 12. And I've actually gone as far as using a wireless mic for my talkback so that I can still have the 12 mixes.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But
I've done that as well.
Actually, I gotta rephrase this. We don't necessarily want talkback to go straight to the output. We want it to go into the ears. So
right. You're just
we have
needing
to
a path, but not for an output. Yeah.
So this is where instead of using the blocks of 8 for
Your inputs.
For my inputs, now you can start talking about using user inputs to get your talkback from front of house back into a channel.
Which I need to do, by the way, because I have been cheating and I'll throw it down 12 and then just take an XLR and patch it from an output right into 30, from 12 into 32. Yeah. But
so let's work this out. So we're talking user ins on the monitor mixer, right? 1 through 32, just over on user in now. We'll just call it 1 through 31 if we want to keep it all visible and just ignore the 30-second mic preamp. We can just say A path straight in. And then on 32, you just say, nope, I want you to come from B44.
This is why I need to have the laptop with me. And like, dude, I don't know if you remember, what was it, like a couple years ago, I was on that Meatloaf show. And it was the one that was like, okay, I was even using the aux inputs and like outboard preamps. I mean, I used everything that these things can do, with the help of Tim, because I wouldn't have figured it all out myself. And like in the heat of the moment, and I was trying to get my laptop to connect to the consoles so that I could look at the routing this way. And man, without it, trying to keep your head around this from the console and the user face on the console or the iPad is a nightmare.
Oh, it's absolutely, sometimes it's just impossible.
Well, especially in the heat of the moment, if you're on kind of like a throw and go situation or festival style or one-offs, stuff that, I'm on stuff that's like this first time doing the show all the time. Right. And when you're in the middle of it, yeah, it can be tricky to get your head around this routing.
So I just grabbed my talkback. Right now it's on A and on external. Check. Just trying to figure out, hey. Yep, we want to leave it there. So my talkback, you guys see this, right? Coming in.
Yep.
This is on my X32 core. I just have the dial at like 5/8 right now in the back of it. So if I pull the mic away from my mouth, I'll hit that -20 or so. Then let's look back at the routing just to make sure you see this correctly. We're sending out the outs, these outs through 45 through 48, or really it's 41 through 48.
Right.
But we're only assigning 44 through 48. 44 happens to be my talkback. So I'm saying send talkback out B44 post fader with these settings. So I will route A for sending signal back to the ears, and really it does on B as well. But on B, I will say left, right. I must have emergency communication bidirectionally between myself, the band, and the audience.
Right. A lot of churches are going to that.
Yep. And we can all imagine why. We're in the day and age of threats, active threats can come in. So,
and you never know. It could be somebody that the child came up looking for their mother. You know, you want to get everybody's attention. There it is.
Right. Now, will the front of house tech in an active threat situation grab the talkback, press and hold the B button and talk? Maybe not. So in that case, you might want to set it on latching as well if you have a mic with a switch. All right, so I want to come over to 32. We said in the routing on the monitor mixer, 32 on user input is coming from B44. We can confirm that by selecting 32, looking at the config. The way I did it was select a channel, hit the config tab, B44.
Yep.
You know we're getting the signal there. As soon as I turn this mic on, talk, this mic is connected to my front of house X32 core, but we are looking at the X32 rack for monitors. It's coming in on B44. There it is. So all we got to do is send it to mix bus 1.
Should have used an aux.
Yeah, if you want to park it on the aux layer.
I'm just talking crap, but yeah.
You got to ask yourself, do you want EQ, compression, maybe a gator or duck or any of that stuff, or do you want just EQ?
Or you're in a situation where you need all 32 channels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great thing to talk about. So if you want to do it that way, I would suggest going back to your input tab, parking these on A, going back to user in, shutting all these off, and then we'll use aux and remap and park it on aux 1. And then you actually do get all of it. I just like to use the limiter so that I don't blast somebody's ears. If I go back to my inputs,
always my biggest concern as well, man. I don't want to cost nobody their hearing.
User in 1 and 2, and if we wanted to do playback the same, we could, right? We're on the record side, which is just live. I wish they would label that live versus playback, but it is what it is. If we go back into...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
User in 1 and 2, all we have to do here is go say, I want this aux input, aux 1, to be sourcing AES50B channel 44. And now it should show up in aux 1.
There you go.
So if I go look at...
See, that's what makes the light bulb go off for me. When I sit there and watch it like that and say, okay, there's the signal.
Yep. So you got A32 back on 32. You got aux 1 looking at B44. You're only using the user ins for the aux in remap, which is just 1 and 2 at this point. Sometimes I like to say use 1 through 4, and then I always keep 5 and 6 for the physical inputs if possible, the RCAs, the quarters for the break music, etc. So usually don't.
Yeah, I was about to mention that for people that don't know this, if some people get confused, like they see user 1 and 2, they're like, oh, does that mean 3, 4, 5, and 6 stop working? No, it means they stay to those physical aux jacks, but aux 1 and 2 gets remapped to something else. So like you said, you can remap 1, 2, 3, and 4, leave 5 and 6, and it will still use aux jacks 5 and 6 on the back of the console.
Right. So in this case, we're not eating up any channels to return the main PA from the front of house down to the monitor rack and out, because we're using the user outs. We're saying outs 1 through 12 monitor mixes, and then B45 through 48 goes straight to the outputs of the DL32 on outs 13 through 16, because there they are.
Because I said so.
Because I said so. That's right. That guy. Yeah. And now you got all 32 inputs coming from the DL32. You've got your talkback from front of house going down B44 and landing in aux 1 with an aux in remap. And you've got a mix bus that's getting signal however you want. I can park this right in that monitor mix. And hey, check. 1, 2, hey. I got to patch it to the monitor mix. Mix bus 1, turn that down. Hey, check. So my front of house talkback is going between the core, the X32 rack, DL32, mix bus 1, output 1 to the Q speaker.
Very nicely done.
I'm like Charlie Brown, dude. I'm sitting here, all I hear is wah, 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 wah. I'm sorry. I mean,
it's cool stuff.
That's why I attend these things.
I love personally being
from them all the time.
I personally love being overwhelmed, because now that I've heard it, the next time I hear it, I'll learn more.
Yeah. You want to know how it's done?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been an under the hood guy. I mean, I remember doing the analog days back in, late 70s, early 80s. I mean, heck, I did the very first Meatloaf tour as monitor engineer, all analog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, Todd Rundgren, Todd was a friend of mine, and he asked Maryland Sound to do the PA. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I'll do it.
I love that.
But those were fun days. But all analog. We didn't have all these tricks.
Man, I love these mixers.
Yeah, they're great. And I will be the first person to say, you compare sound for sound, not considering money. Yeah, there's a whole ton of mixers out there that will sonically sound better. You want to start talking dollars for sound, they're not going to touch this.
Brother, they can't get close. It's impossible.
And then you start talking functionality. I have not seen a single other mixer at this price point. Keep in mind, a rack is now sub $1,000 after the price drop.
Yeah.
What other mixer can say, here's 16 physical ins, but oh, by the way, you can process 32 channels, and oh, by the way, you can remap 48 bidirectionally however you want, and then you can do all this side chaining and cross routing and all the craziness. Like,
yeah, you can have a X32 rack with 16 inputs and combine it with your computer, and now you got 32. Yeah, you can run 16 from your card. You can manipulate these things to an extent, man. It's just absolutely incredible. Well, guys, as you can see, we've covered a lot of information here. I hope it's been beneficial. I hope you've gotten something out of what we actually try and do up here. Okay? Take care. God bless. And we are out of here.